Hello everyone, welcome to Saturn in the 5th house of your chart. In this video I'm using the Vedic astrology system, but if you are Western based you can still use this video as long as you take sign for a house. So if Saturn is 5 signs away from your ascendant or even your moon sign, this video will be relevant to you. If you are new to my channel, sub below and let's get started. Now, so Saturn is in the 5th house of your chart, everybody. This is quite a serious position of Saturn. Saturn in the 5th and 9th house gives a seriousness to your psychological being, to your psychological nature. That's the first thing which you're going to find here. Why does this happen? Well, because Saturn isn't totally at home in a trine house, the 5th, 9th house particularly, more in the 1st house because that's a quadrant house. So Saturn's agenda of purposeful limitation is going to be absolutely a bit heavy here because the 5th and 9th house are thought of, although it's not totally true, as the houses of our luck. This doesn't mean you're going to be unlucky, but from a very early age, you're going to have that feeling that you have to work harder than other people. You're going to be very serious about getting material success. You're going to be very serious about your relationships, and I'll be talking about that soon. So the 5th house is about how we are spontaneously ourselves. It's about how we have fun and how we engage with our children and indeed children themselves. The 5th house is also about education because school should be the happiest days of our life, right? Well, Saturn's going to give a different experience. So what's Saturn going to do here? First of all, let's start with children because people fear that Saturn in the 5th, they're not going to have children. Far from it. I haven't seen this at all. Saturn's going to make you very serious with your children, though. You're going to be a very responsible parent. You're not light-hearted, touchy-feely sort of parent, but again, you have to check your moon sign, you have to check where the 5th house lord has gone and other aspects to your 5th, and indeed even your D5 chart to come to some final consideration. But it's going to be karmic, okay? There will be some delay in having children. That can often happen. I've seen somebody who's had a very early child when she was in her teenage years, and then she didn't have any other children until she was in her 40s. And she had Saturn in her 5th. So this sort of big delay, limitation can happen with children. But whatever happens, children are going to be a very responsible part of your life. Now, you might say, well, that's true for everybody. Children bring lots of responsibility. But for you, you're going to feel it differently. It's going to feel like children are a bit of a limitation for you in some way. Okay, but you've got to look at the sign involved for how you will experience that. It doesn't mean you can't have good relationships with your children, but it's not light-hearted. You're not a light-hearted sort of parent. You're very strict. You're very wanting to get things ordered with your children. But in some way, you do feel that children are something which you have to have, almost like it's a duty. That can happen too. But again, you can't make an overall conclusion. But there will be some delay. There will be some limitation there. When it comes to your education, it's very clear. Saturn's going to put a heavy feeling into that side of life. This is just before you go on to higher education or the first year of higher education itself. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be something which you feel is getting you down because Saturn gives late development. So you may be a late you may go to university but have to give up a course. You may be a late developer in school. You may feel like you're always falling behind. You're very studious though because Saturn makes you very serious about education. But it takes a lot of effort. That's the point. So in this sense, Saturn can give you a delayed education where you completely leave education and come back to it later on, or you just want to get into the working world. You see, Saturn is about the material situation and it's not interested in academic success for its own sake. So you absolutely, if you go on to higher education, you want to go into something which is going to give you the good money. It's going to give you security. Deep down, you see, Saturn in the fifth has a deep feeling of insecurity coming from past life, because Saturn here is about our past life good karmas. They are there, but Saturn's going to put restrictions on how you gain access to them. That's the secret here. You've got those karmas, but to get them, Saturn's going to make you work seriously and morally for them. Because this insecurity deep inside makes you afraid that you're not going to have enough in life. You see that this is a deep down insecurity. So yes, it's going to affect education. There's going to be some breaks in that education. But ultimately, according to the fifth house lord and the ninth house lord, you can be very successful academically, but in a serious and slow start. That's the most important factor here. Now, what about your own creativity? Are you a creative person artistically and in any other way? Yes, you take it again very seriously. It's not easy for you though. You see, if you've got skills, that all depends on your third house and your fifth house lord, what you do with those skills, okay? You're going to take it very purposefully, which hampers the spontaneity of artistic endeavor, doesn't it? So if you become an artist in any way, you're going to want to earn money from it. You're not interested in just doing art for art's sake, really. Not with this Saturn. You're going to absolutely want to make it materially of a benefit to yourself. And if it doesn't give that benefit, it's going to disappoint you. So that's a problem with art and being spontaneous in those sort of endeavors here. Saturn's going to delay success and it's going to make you frustrated in them. So it's hard to just enjoy art for art's sake with this Saturn position. Okay, so yes, there's going to be delays in children, in education, in artistic endeavors, but the seriousness of it is going to be the most important factor. Because you take everything so seriously, you are not denied these things, but they become an important part of who you are. They become the most central part of your whole existence, okay? And this means there is a heaviness to your interaction with children. There's a heaviness in your education, and there's a slow heaviness to your artistic endeavors also. Now, how is Saturn going to aspect and affect you in the important areas like relationships and hopes, wishes, friendships, and money? Let's explore. So Saturn's aspect on your seventh house of relationships. Very important to understand this psychologically, first of all. Saturn makes you serious, makes you determined, makes you purposeful about these houses. Relationships to you become an absolute endeavor, almost a career for some people. You want to find the successful mate. You don't want just any mate. You want someone who will bring you up that social ladder, right? But Saturn can cause delays in that, disappointments in finding the right type of mate. Saturn can make you fear that you will never find the right relationship, but you will. And again, Saturn can give huge delay. It can be midlife or even sometimes later before you find that soulmate, okay? Because Saturn always gives delay. But Saturn is doing something else by his aspect, though, than he would if he was in the house. And that is, he is putting so much emphasis on that house that you just can't let go. Okay, so there is a fear aspect too. There is a fear that you won't find the right person. There is a fear that you're going to lose the mate. There's always fear around being with another person in a close, intimate relationship. That will be absolutely depend on the other aspects here, and the other planets that are in the seventh and indeed the fifth house can change all of that. But there will be deep inside a fear that you have to be aware of psychologically and try your best to contain. Saturn can give delay, as I say, but in the end, Saturn is always going to bring a partner into your life if you want that. Some people with Saturn in the fifth are simply not interested in relationships, and they shy away from them and they just stay single because they don't want children and they don't want a relationship. That can happen, but it's very, very rare. Why is it rare? It's rare because Saturn has karmas that you have to fulfill with children and in a relationship. So it's very unlikely that you won't have a relationship. Now, when you get into those relationships, what happens? You become serious. You want everything to be successful. You want material success in a relationship. Again, this can put a lot of pressure onto you and onto your mate. So you have to try to lighten up a little bit in those relationships. But that's the main fear, okay? That it will not be successful, that it will not sustain you. So you have to look at the aspect of the seventh house Lord to see how successful that relationship will be. And of course, the D9 chart to give a final conclusion. But on the whole, though, Saturn's going to put a lot of pressure on your relationships and you take them terribly seriously. And you will definitely be finding a mate also who may be a lot older than yourself or very well established. That can happen also. Now, Saturn's aspect on the 11th house of our hopes and our wishes is very important here. Saturn's going to give you high aspirations. I've talked about that. You're very ambitious for your social status, for who you want to be, where you want to go. But Saturn's going to give delays. Saturn's going to demand that you take things slowly. And it's going to drive you insane sometimes. It's going to feel like you're doing 2 steps forward, 1 step back, particularly in regard to your career assets, to going up that career ladder financially. It's not going to be steady progress. There will be breaks, there will be delays, there will be frustration. But if you can accept that, it can take a long time, but Saturn can give good financial assets and good financial success. One warning, though, I have to say, you see, Saturn here gives you the temptation to take the easy route because you're so fixated on finding that financial security. If you can avoid that, then it's going to be fine, okay? But long-term success really does mean long-term efforts here to gain that success. In regard to your friendships too, Saturn can give a sense of liking the friends who have got the contacts, liking the friends who give you some sense of purpose, So you're a bit, how can I say it? I don't want to say that you use people because that isn't going to happen. For most of you, that isn't going to be the case. But you do tend to choose friends that you think could be useful to you in some way as a sideline, and you have to be careful that can backfire. What you will find, though, is that you have a limited social circle, that you're not part of a big friendship group very often with this Saturn. You have a few friends. There can be lifelong friends with which there is a definite karma here. And there can be a real sense of feeling that friends are absolutely letting you down. Sometimes that can happen. It's all about Saturn wanting you to be dutiful, you to give. So be very careful that you are very good to your friends and they will be good to you as well. So finally, Saturn's aspect on your second house is Saturn's 10th aspect and very crucial. This is also about money and assets, but in a different way. It's about family assets and your own sense of security. This is the main issue, you see. We're now coming to the crux of it all. The main issue with Saturn in the 5th is of inner security, inner confidence in yourself. You put on an excellent show to the world of being a very together person, of being very organized, of being very purposeful. But inside, you don't feel it. You feel it's a bit of an act, okay? And this is all to do with the fear that you won't have enough, that you won't be secure, because the second house is about security. So what's going to happen is, yes, you could be born into a very rich family with this Saturn, but there will be some limitation. There will be some feeling that it isn't really what you want, okay, if you were born in that situation. because money in itself is not going to satisfy you in this life. That's the biggest lesson here because of Saturn's aspect. Ultimately, through hard work and effort, you can gain great success with this Saturn. But the whole point is that you have to get your value system right. You see, Saturn in the second house is about value system, and it can be really hard for you to take your value system to higher levels here because you're so insecure that you're going to lose out materially. So sign will make a huge difference here, but Saturn's going to make your values a little shaky sometimes. You might have strong moral values and then you might be tempted to backtrack on them. Be careful, Saturn wants you to stay on that moral track. I just want to say that about it, okay? But also, Saturn here is family, and this is often seen. There is a difficulty in the early family environment. There is some sense of restriction. Now, again, you've got to see the sign involved and where the Lord has gone. But there isn't that feeling of belonging, okay? Saturn aspected on the second house means your very early upbringing at a very early age. And there can be a sense of being different to the others in your family. There can be a sense of hearing a different drummer, as it were. You can feel that you're there for a different purpose than they are. Saturn is separation. So you may be separated from early family in some way for some of you. There can be adoption, there can be loss of parents, there can be different things like that with this aspect, okay? Or there can be something that happens very early on to your parents or to your family that uproots you and completely changes your early environment, and it has a very strong psychic aspect on you. And it is this early environment that has led to this inner insecurity, probably in this life, although it is a karmic pattern from a past life, because Saturn is always about karmic patterns, okay? But it is this early environment that has definitely caused you to have this inner fear. So Saturn wants you to take things slowly, steadily, to not try to jump through any hoops just to get what you want in life. The temptation with Saturn aspecting the 11th and the second house, I have to say it, is to take the easy money, to really, to go for the easy route. So if you do anything which may not be exactly, how can I put it, above board, guys, avoid it, because Saturn is going to come down heavy on you if you do anything that isn't above board. I don't want to preach, but that's what Saturn's karmas are all about here. Okay, so that was my video on Saturn in your 5th house. I hope that was useful to you all. If it was, sub to my channel. More videos coming up on Vedic astrology and all aspects indeed of astrology. Goodbye for now, and God bless everyone.